Welcome to Two Broker Girls with Amber and Kate. Kate, how was your weekend?
It was enlightening is probably the word I would use for this weekend. I had a niece and nephew get baptized. We had a dual baptism, and I grew up Roman Catholic, grew up in private schools my entire life, even up through college, and I've never had an experience that was quite like this. I think that my sisters-in-law checked exorcism as opposed to baptism on their form.
Easy mistake to make.
Very, because the opening for the baptism is normally like, look at their cute dresses and look how adorable this whole thing is going to be and life and light. None of that happened. We were told that their souls were Satan's. And it was the only way for them to survive in life was to have water poured over their head. And I just felt like, that was very eye-opening. And there's a reason why my husband and I, when we got married, that we stepped out of the Roman Catholic faith. And that was very interesting for me and kind of affirming in my decision that I've made so many years ago.
That's what we all love about religion these days, right? It's so uplifting and makes you feel like, you just feel good when you leave after you've basically been promised to Satan unless you do this one thing. So, all great things. I mean, that's certainly why I go to church regularly.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that, I still have a solid relationship with God, but I do feel like that wasn't what I was quite expecting out of that. And we had a good laugh at lunch about it. And, he did make us feel very comfortable in the fact that he was a trained exorcist. So he was prepared for this in case something were to happen with the demons inside the kids.
I don't know that would make me feel any better, actually. Like, if my Catholic priest was like, don't worry, I got you in case the demon decides to come out right now, like, I'm prepared, you know, like.
I mean, he was a missionary, so there's probably a lot of things that he's seen and that are not just, church on Sunday. So it was a different experience. But
yeah, not one I'm rushing to have. My husband was raised Catholic. And when we got married, obviously, because I had been married once prior, that wasn't really an option for us anyway. And I was so happy because I haven't been to a ton of Catholic weddings, but it's the get up, stand up, sit down, sing. It's just a constant.
Don't forget to kneel and break your knees.
Yeah, and all the things. And it takes so long.
Yeah.
Like, you've already spent a year planning this wedding. Like, can we just get in and out and be done?
Yeah.
My attention span by the time the day got there was so short that I was my typical, on schedule self. I just wanted it to like boom, 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 be done and not have the whole production. So I'm kind of happy that we avoided that. Plus his family's Italian. So it's like the Catholic Italian debacle that
also Italian
never ends
also
and takes forever.
Yes.
And the fake smiling and all the things. So no.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Our ceremony when we got married was 20 minutes. And I was more, and I told our priest when we showed up, I was like, I want to be like really quick and succinct. No one wants to sit in a chair and watch us stand up there. I'm going to be in a big heavy dress. Like, I'm going to want to go
and
like
probably sweating,
eat, party.
Yeah.
Like, that's what my family's about. Like, we're Irish. So Scott's Irish, and we're just like, party on. So that's what I was all about. I was like, I want to feed them, and I want them to drink, and I want to like dance.
Feed them, get them wasted, and then send them home.
Yeah.
Perfect.
On a bus. Very safe.
Well, yeah.
On a bus to the hotel.
Of course. Or in an Uber.
Yeah. Whatever you
know.
do. Don't drive when you're drinking.
Yeah. We don't condone that.
Yeah.
So my week last week, I was in Cabo the weekend previously.
Which was rude that you didn't invite me, but it's fine.
Well, it was not the longest and most well-planned trip. I knew what hotel we were in, but beyond that, no other planning was involved. So it was a lot of winging it, which in some ways I'm great at. Some ways it drives me crazy because I like to have a plan. I like to know. So we had another couple with us, and it never fails. I'm the cruise director, whether I want to be or not. So every day it's like, well, what time are we going to eat breakfast? I don't know. If you're hungry, go eat. Like, what are we doing today? Again, I don't know. So I feel like when we got back last Sunday, and I don't know if you're like this too, when you're on a couples or group trip, I needed the whole week to decompress.
Mhm.
Like, at least
Mhm.
Monday and Tuesday, I was not peopling. Like,
Which is funny because that's our entire job. Like,
yeah,
our job is to
yeah,
people all the time. So,
yes,
you would think that we would be,
yeah.
like, especially as extroverts, like, we would just be able to, like, switch from one brain to the next.
Oh, yeah, I'm totally not an extrovert, though.
Introvert, extrovert.
I'm an introverted extrovert.
Yes.
So I can be totally on and you can think I'm an extrovert, but I am exhausted
Mhm.
and, like, tuned out half the way through, and I'm just done. So that was my whole week last week, was just being done. So, like, I feel like this week I need to go back and apologize to anybody that I came in contact with or talked to on the phone or, appraisers or inspectors or anybody last week because I was just short.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I don't know why I didn't have any bad days. I had some really great days, but I still just didn't want to today any of those days.
Yeah.
So,
No
I don't know.
adulting.
No adulting, and then, honestly, no kidding either. I was not top mom material last week. I was kind of that fend for yourself kind of mother, like, at
Cereal for
14
dinner.
and 11, like, feed yourself. Mama doesn't have it this week. I mean, I'll say I'm not a probably top mom, material any week, but last week was bad. So, here we
Oh.
are.
Well, I just think that's really I just think it's super interesting as moms, and I think as a mom crowd, we give each other, like, a lot of forgiveness when it comes to that because it's a different kind of on, right? Like, you're on with your friends, you're on at work, you're on with your kids, you're on with your husband, like, there's just
Are
it's
we?
well, we're
I
on-ish.
I feel like it's a pick one sort of situation most days. Like, I can be on for the kids or on for work or on for the husband, but that's about it.
I feel like I'm, like, a pick 2. Like, I'm like a Panera special, like, you pick 2 and you get half and half. Like,
Yeah,
because
maybe.
the kids are at school, I don't have to be that
I feel
I don't
like I
have to
can
be that.
lump the husband and the kids into one bucket sometimes
Yeah.
and, moderately make all three of them happy,
Yeah, that's
like,
probably true. But I just think it's so interesting and just the work bubble and then but for for me at least and most likely for you, a lot of our work happens when that kid and husband bubble converge and it's at home. And so,
mhm.
it's I get the mommy, look at this. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm looking at it. And they're like, you're looking at your phone. I'm like, so I am.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
am.
No, I was using the phone to take a picture of
Yeah.
the 40th piece of art you produced this week. So I can save it forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I totally get it. It's balance was not my friend this week. I'll
No,
just own that. It
yeah.
just didn't happen for me. Maybe next week. I feel like I'm a coach at a press conference, like talking about all the ways their team failed, like the Buccaneers coach probably did yesterday after their team miserably lost. But that's how I feel most weeks. Like, let's recap. Let's not this week.
Yeah.
It's probably not worth revisiting.
Yeah, but you gotta give yourself some grace. There's a lot going on in life and just in moms in general, there's just a lot going on in life in general. So I just feel like you have to give yourself some sort of grace in some ways. They're alive and breathing and
Yeah, but I totally want to come back as a dad in my next life. Like, that would be the goal.
yeah.
Because, yeah, I mean, he just kind of shows up where he's instructed to be, and like nobody really asks him anything. Like, if you ask my husband who our kids' doctors are,
Not a clue.
not a clue. Not a clue. Like, when was the last time they had their shots?
The last time they were here for them.
Yeah, yeah, no, he'd be more likely to tell you when our dog had its shots than our kids. So, but
Well, Kristen Bell nailed it last Mother's Day. She said that she wanted a Father's Day kind of Mother's Day because fathers get to go out and, like, go golfing and whatever, and like
mhm.
mothers get their like coffee and some sort of like unmysterious like breakfast served to them, and then they still like are at home doing whatever they're doing for a lot of the time. And she's like, I want a Father's Day kind of Mother's Day. And
Yeah,
I was like, you kind of nailed that.
that is true.
I will
Yeah,
have to say though, my husband is, I mean, he works a ton of hours, but when he's home, he's on. And I have to super appreciate that because he knows that like I need to be off. And so I do have to say, he might not know when their shots were or anything, but he does give me that. And it helps that I have 2 boys and he's obviously a guy. So, like, it does help that he can go, like, do Legos for 4 hours and
Oh, God.
or, like, trucks and whatever, or just lay on the floor and let them, like, jump on him like it's WWE, which is fine by me because I'll sit on the
Yeah.
couch and just
So,
watch it.
yeah, video.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
it's so cute. It's not me.
Yeah.
He's gonna have major back issues when he's, like, old, but
Yeah.
I do have to appreciate the, like, onness that he has when he's there because he does work a ton of hours, and so, I mean, he's exhausted, so I do have to appreciate what he does for me.
Yeah. I think that when my girls were younger, it was easier for Clint to kind of, my husband, to take that role of like really going and doing things and, being on for them all the time. But now that one is a teenager and one is a preteen,
Preteen.
like they say some stuff sometimes and he looks like a deer in the headlight. Like, what does that mean? Like, what am I supposed to do with that? And then they tag team him.
Yeah.
So if they're tag teaming, and it's pretty funny for me to watch because, of course, I know what's happening, but he
Yeah.
has no concept of they are playing you.
Yeah.
Like you are
Manipulating to a
working
T.
exactly the way they want you to where you think it's going to be your idea to go or do something, but they've already kind of like pre-engineered the outcome of that conversation.
Yeah.
They know where they're going. So it's interesting to see. So
Well, and it's gotta be
like
hard, like
mental ninjas.
well, and as a dad, like, that's so much harder to connect with girls as they get older, like, it's so much easier to be like, "Oh, they're my sweet little babies," like, when they're little and unicorns and whatever, and be the knight in shining armor as opposed to, like, now where it doesn't matter who you are, you're probably any sort of adult figure is just, like, you're not innately just not cool, like,
Oh, yeah.
just super not cool. At least my husband will have, like, video games to work himself into and be able to,
Oh,
like,
gosh.
still connect with the kids, like, I won't I
Yeah.
probably start connecting less, mom will become much less cool.
Yeah. But at least when yours are a little bit older, you will know where all your clothing items are.
True.
And
True.
I mean, things like bras and makeup, and it will still be in your
My
stuff.
area.
Yeah. So super fun time. So what is going on with your real estate market right now? Anything fun? Anything notable happening?
I wouldn't say there's anything notable happening in my real estate market other than what everyone, the buzzwords that people are, market crash and high interest rates. And I think that's what everybody's hearing right now and
Mhm.
everybody's afraid. Um, what I find to be interesting is the conversations more or less that are not being had with the public, like the people during COVID who bought their houses on an ARM instead of, which is an adjustable rate mortgage.
Mhm.
So they may have bought their house at a 1% interest rate, and now with the ARM, they're getting closer to that 7. So I've been watching the foreclosure market happen to start to sneak up some, and just not like low income housing, like some of the nicer houses, people are struggling. And that makes me sad, but it's that's the conversation that's not happening that should be happening. There should be more of a refinancing conversation happening. Because even if you're at that 7% with your ARM, it could continue to climb and you don't know. You're
Mhm.
depending on that bond market that, isn't stable right now. So, right now I think the refinance should be more of a conversation that people are starting to have.
And I think that the other thing that we're seeing is some of the COVID relief, not making your mortgage payment thing is sneaking up on people
Yeah.
because they just assumed that the mortgage holder was adding those payments to the end, and they weren't.
Right.
So now a lot of people are getting hit with notices that, like, you owe a crap ton of money. They have no way of paying that.
Yeah.
So I don't know if your inbox is like mine with big banks like US Bank and Citi and everything else. They're looking for agents to handle their foreclosures now,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
I haven't really seen that since 2007, 8, 9. But that's really scary to see because they know it's coming.
Well, and it'll be even worse when the REOs start calling us. Like, that's when they're like, hey, take this listing, put it on. whatever. And I
Mhm.
mean, they don't even care. And it'll take, and REOs, I would rather deal with a short sale foreclosure with a bank than I would an REO, because an REO, you could put an offer in and like they'll just wait weeks and weeks and weeks to respond.
Mhm.
And by that point, if the buyer hasn't moved on and they decide to sign it, then it's like, then it's the whole debacle of you're under contract twice.
Right.
And so, every time I'm working with an REO, I tell them, like, if they haven't responded in a couple weeks and your client wants to move
Rescind
on,
it.
rescind it, rescind your
Well, and that
offer.
should really be with anything because you
Sure.
see more and more shady stuff happening now
Oh my gosh.
with, they will verbally over the phone, and I had this happen, decline an offer, and then we had them come back 3 days later when they didn't get the offers in that they thought they were going to get and try to accept the offer that we had already submitted. However, he didn't check his email to see that we had actually formally rescinded that offer. So it was a whole thing, but he tried to send it to title
No.
and it was a mess. I mean, it's the shady times in real estate coming, and I hope people are prepared.
Yeah, I mean, as sad as it is, I feel like people are so afraid to be open about their financial situations, and I get it. Like, I get it would you have to eat crow to be able to come to somebody and say, "Hey, I'm in severe financial distress. I can't make my bills." But I would much rather go to a real estate agent or to my lender, especially the people who bought during COVID where they have that built-in equity because their appraisal was so much higher than anybody could have expected.
Mhm.
Even if they did an appraisal waiver where they paid the gap and pull out money to pay off their debt right now to do a HELOC or something, or just say, I need to list my house so I don't go into foreclosure, because often banks will hold off if you're trying to do something about it.
Right.
And so, even if you're making partial mortgage payments to put them off, your payoff at the end of the day is going to still suck, but your foreclosure lasts on your record for 7 years. Like,
Mhm.
it's very hard to get around that. So, it's so hard to come to somebody. But what people don't realize is when you start working with a real estate agent and we are contracted together, everything is confidential. So you could tell me that you're this much in debt, but I don't necessarily have to disclose that. They do have to know if you're in default, but they
Right,
don't need
and
to.
that's the thing is it's easier when you see you're about to have a major problem to, like, head it off at the pass, like, "Okay, we need to get out of this house." I mean, not anticipating a raise in the next, like, month that's gonna let me afford this house. So
Right.
go ahead and start making your moves and putting things in place rather than putting your head in the sand and saying, "Oh, well, if I ignore it, it'll go away," and then you're getting foreclosure notices.
Right.
And that's what I see people do all the time, and
Right.
they just and once you have that foreclosure, then it's harder to do anything. To find a rental afterwards when you
Yes.
just foreclosed is a nightmare.
Yes. Because it
So,
tanks your credit. I
mhm,
mean,
well, and it shows a potential landlord that
you
you just
can't pay.
defaulted on a mortgage loan. Why would you keep up with rent?
Right. Right. It's one of those things where I just tell people, like, hey, when you're in trouble, like, you don't have to blast it out to the world, but you can tell people that you're in trouble and that you need to downsize or something like that. And you're going to put yourself in a better position, because not that I'm saying don't pay your mortgage for 3 months, but you're not going to go into that foreclosure process until 3 months. Before that,
Mhm.
you're just in that pre foreclosure. And we get it and we understand. And like, we're going to be your advocate more than anything else. So, I'm just watching that market and it just makes me sad because I'm just, it went from having a couple, because we had that forbearance during
Mhm.
COVID. And so it was just a couple that would come through. And now it's like, there's 10 or there's 20. And it's, you get the information every week. So to get that is it's just exhausting, where, it used to be 4 pages of building permits because all the builders were going crazy. And now it's like slowly it's going to start creeping up that those foreclosures are going to become a full page, which is how it was, about 6 or 7 years ago, when the
Mhm.
market was in a stable, more of a plateau where it was an even more of an even playing field. And that makes me sad, because so many people did buy at the very top of their budget and didn't even think or project out, like, what if, I mean, since I'm 1099, we budget our household completely off of my husband. So it's like food, mortgage, utilities, all of that has to come out of his paycheck, and then everything else is just fun money for the lack of a better term.
Hmm.
But we do that in case something happens because
Right.
we work in a volatile market. So when the housing market is affected, we're affected. So that's what we have always tried to work towards. And that's why I tell people, I'm like, if you can, try and make it just one of your budgets, like just
Right.
one of you
Yeah.
that can pay it because you never know what's going to happen. So you don't want to lose your house. If anything, you want to use your house as leverage. So if you can pull money out, if you something medically were to happen and you want to pull money out and start paying for medical bills, that makes more sense to do it that way. Use your equity as leverage.
Yeah. No, I agree. And there's a lot of um, solutions that a lot of people don't know or understand that if they would just talk to somebody that is very well trained, that could help them out a ton. But I think that the credibility issues in our community because of the last few years kind of prohibit people from reaching out to an agent because they're like, well, every agent I know is also just a side hustle, stay at home mom, and I wouldn't trust them to give me advice. And half the time they're right because that agent has no clue what they're talking about. So I think that it's hopefully going to cull our industry a little bit and get rid of some people who weren't serious about it when those dues start coming due at the end of the year and their grocery bill is way more and everything else and they haven't produced. I think you're going to see a lot of licenses go.
Yeah, the real estate reckoning.
Yes, I'm here for it. I'm here for it. So, and it's sad, but it's needed
Yeah. Well,
big
and
time.
I think what people also don't realize when they're looking at agents, and it's great to get recommendations. Don't get me wrong. Like it's totally heartwarming when someone says that they've gotten my name from somebody else. I mean, referrals are a beautiful thing. And so I'm not knocking anybody on that. But what I do tell people is there's a couple things that I tell people to look for. I tell them to look for their education, how long they've had their license, which they can look, it's all public information.
Mhm.
I also tell them to look at their social media. And part of that is because you want them to be able to connect with that person as a personality. And it's great, in my opinion. And if this is how you want to do your business, that's great. But that's the beauty of us that we can do our business however we want. I'm not going to be that person that posts like, oh, I had a $5 million month and I closed 40 million this year or whatever. I'm not that agent because
Mhm.
I want to be your resource and I want to educate you and I want to teach you and like let you know the information. I'm not gatekeeping anything. And yes, do I have sales? Yes. Am I a top producing agent? Yes. But I don't have to boast that on social media and I don't post all of my solds on social media because for multiple reasons. Sometimes my clients don't want that. They don't want their house posted, they don't want their story posted. They don't want that. So I don't necessarily do that. Um do I know that sometimes I need to post stuff like that so people know that I'm actually an
Mhm.
active agent? Yes, I also recognize that. But I think people need to recognize that it's great when you receive a reference or a referral, but you also need to not just take that one, maybe interview two, and make sure you're looking at them as a whole pie instead of like a piece.
Well, and I actually did a TikTok on that same subject because it really cracks me up. Like on Facebook. Facebook is the worst. I'll see
Mhm.
somebody, I'm looking for a realtor in New Braunfels, Texas. And I'm like, here we go.
2
There's
minutes and 75,000 comments
yeah,
later.
and I look through the names and 9 times out of 10, it's an agent that I have never heard of in my whole life. And as a broker in I would say New Braunfels area is kind of medium-sized city, you get really familiar with who is active, who's actively selling, who's actively working in that market. So to see all these weird names and companies that you've never heard of, you're just like, where are all these people coming from?
Mhm.
So, I actually feel sorry for some of these would be buyers or sellers who get these names and they think, okay, well, this person seems really nice, because, of course, after their name came up in the thread, they've now DM'd also because the thread was not enough. So now they're filling up somebody's inbox, and they hire somebody that has no experience or, and I'm not saying that only experienced agents are good, um, but you still have to have some knowledge to back up if you have a lack of experience. So I tell people all the time, and you will never, ever, ever see me putting my name on one of those threads. I just will not do it. If somebody is not smart enough to Google and find an agent that has some credibility, like, it's just not my market. But
Yeah.
anyway, I tell people all the time, I'm like, ask for proof of sales history, transactions in the area that you're looking. Because even for myself personally, there's areas in New Braunfels that I just don't work. It's not my market. I'm a niche agent in kind of the luxury market. So if you're looking at an area closer to, Marion, that is a new home construction neighborhood starting in like the twos, I'm probably not going to be the best one for you. I can
Right.
refer you to others that are going to know that area like the back of their hand, know what incentives that builder has, all the different things, but I'm just not it.
Right.
So I think that there's a bad habit of agents that try to stick their hand up to sign up for every client when not every client is for you.
Right.
And that is a problem because it's leading to decreased credibility with buyers and sellers because everybody now has the horror story like, oh, I hired so and so and they were awful. They did nothing and didn't even show up to the inspection and, all the different horror stories that we hear all the time.
Right.
But a little bit of due diligence on the front end would have saved a lot of that.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's my thing is, if you're not willing to really research on the front end, then don't complain on the back end.
Yeah. And some things they're not going to know. Like, I mean, some things they're just not going to know until they start getting into it. And I totally get that. Like, it's just going to come to a point where a personality starts to makes a difference, and that agent's drive. Like, there are people, and this just would never be me. There are people who have full-time, they have full-time assistants and transaction coordinators that, you might be the first initial contact with that client and get all their criteria and set up their portal, but then they send their assistant out to go do all the showings. And then they just talk to you over the phone through like the inspection, but they don't go to inspection. Like that to me is very depersonalized. And my business is centered around being there for you. Like you employed me essentially. So I'm here to work for you. And so yes, sometimes I have my assistant go put out a sign or pick something up or something like that, but I'm not not present anymore. Like
Right.
I'm still here for you. And if you need me to come, talk through something with you, like I'm going to do that. I'm not going to send my TC or my buyer's agent to go do that for you. That's just not, I try and be a very personalized, like to that person. And that's why I have such good relationships with my past clients and why they refer me people and why there's that trust because I'm there for them. And so a lot of what I hear negatively is like, oh, well, they showed me some properties and then I never, but never heard from them again. Or, they didn't fight for my best interest or I didn't understand the process. I felt like I had to buy this house. And I would feel awful and know that I have done something wrong if that's how one of my clients walked away. If they
Oh,
felt
absolutely.
if they
Absolutely.
felt
And so
trapped.
many do.
Yeah.
And so many don't understand that once they start getting that feeling with an agent, that they are in their rights to terminate that agreement and move on. Like,
Right.
especially buyer's agent. If you don't feel like a buyer's agent is fighting for you or knows what they're doing or doesn't show up, has lack of availability, keeps passing you off, move on.
Yeah, for sure.
Like if you're getting red flag after red flag after red flag, it's kind of like dating. Like, are you going to go on to marry the person or are you just going to like cut your ties and be like, look, this isn't the relationship for me?
Right, 100%. And I tell people that when I have them sign the buyer's rep and we walk through what all of that is, because it's a lot. It's especially for first time home buyers or people that are moving from out of state. Like a lot of states either don't have one or it's like a one pager. So to sign something that's like 6 pages is like asinine to them. And so the one thing I always highlight is like, hey, you can terminate this at any time. You just got to put it in writing to me that that's what you want to do. Because chances are, if you don't want to work with me, I probably don't want to work with you.
Mm-hmm.
Because by that point, it's already become a toxic environment. Like,
Right.
and because there's something that you don't like you don't want to answer the phone because you're like, oh, Bob Smith is calling again. And or whatever it is. So you can tell when an agent's putting you off when they initially were first like, apt and ready to go, like, Braveheart with on the horse, like ready to go to battle for you. Like, but if that starts to change,
Right.
then clearly something is off. And either you need to address it and say, hey, your business has changed. So I feel like either we need to work on this or we need to part ways. And you can always give them a second chance. And if it doesn't work, walk away. Like,
Right.
and there's no harm, no foul in that. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing wrong. And I have fired clients. You've fired clients.
Mhm.
Clients have fired me, and I've been at peace with it. Like,
Yeah.
and I'm like,
Sometimes you're like ready for
yeah, I'm
that
like,
to
please,
happen.
please fire
No,
me.
and that's exactly why I tell my team at the office that your first meeting isn't about like, oh, I got to get the buyer's rep signed. It's like a first date. Like
Mhm.
you found each other online. You all look beautiful. I'm sure, they've looked you up online. You've probably looked up their name, Googled them, whatever. But you need to see if that chemistry is there. You need to see if you communicate the same way and if you can really live up to what they're needing and if they can do what you need.
Yeah.
So for me, like I am not the sugary sweet.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's super hard to believe, but
I'm shocked, in fact.
yeah, I could tell by your face.
Did I not hide it?
Yeah. Yeah. No, one of my mortgage lenders told a builder that was going to work with me that I'm much more of a straight shot of whiskey. It's going to burn going down sometimes, but I'll give it to you straight. I'm not the one that's going to hug you on every meeting and like coddle you and all of that. Like for me, it's a business transaction. I've never had my attorney like call me or like, want to chit chat or coddle me or hug me or any of that. Like I would think that's weird, right?
Yeah.
So as another professional, that's just not how I roll.
Right.
So I do better with people that look at real estate transactions more of as a business. They're not, this was the home that my kids were raised in and look at that door frame over there where little Johnny's, height is written all the way up the frame. Like those are not maybe the best clients for me. And I am in tuned with that enough to refer them to somebody who's really going to be able to give them what they need. Because
Yeah.
I know it is an emotional thing for some people
Yeah.
and they need that. I'm going to fail them if I say, oh, yeah, I can do that. I'm not that girl.
Yeah. And I'm probably a blend. I'm definitely not a touchy-feely person. Like hugs make
Mhm.
me feel weird. And so I get like people, I mean, it like I'm better than I was, but I'm like love language, like touch is not even on the register. Like it's not my thing. I don't enjoy it. It does not bring me joy. But I'm like a blend. Like I do really well in the market of like death and divorce. And I know that's super morbid, but sometimes
No
those
wonder the priest decided y'all needed an
it was
exorcism
me.
instead of
It
a
was me.
baptism.
They felt my inner
They
demons.
felt you.
But I do really well with being that listener. And that's like, I think, more of a mental hug for people. Like, I
Mhm.
will let them tell me their life story. And I tell them up front, look, I'm pretty blunt. I'm to the point, and I'm going to tell you like it is. And I'm going to tell you how your house is. And I'm going to tell you what needs to be improved. And I'm not saying it to hurt your feelings. I'm saying it because I know what sells. And there's a reason why my days on market are low. And I'm not undercutting their pricing at all. I'm just saying for the price that you want to get, you can't have rotting wood. Like, it's not a good look.
Mhm.
And we want you to qualify for as many loans as possible.
Right.
So I will let them do the mental mind dump to tell me about the house, and then I get straight to business. And I think it's that I have that ability and blend with people that I have become so successful because I'm not the person that's going to like, be the high fives and hugs all the time, but I will sit there and I will listen to your story because that to me, it helps me build like a brand around the house because I'm not just marketing your house, I'm branding your house. I'm making
Right.
your house a Nike shoe. I'm making it the runner. I'm making it the CrossFit shoe. Like that's what I'm
Mhm.
doing. So for you to build that because of my territory, it's different in your territory, but my territory had HGTV for 7 years. So it is about building that story. It is about
Right.
building those beautiful timelines and things like that for people because that makes people feel warm and fuzzy inside in my market.
Right.
So,
And that's what we do. My niche is the luxury market. So luxury is its own animal and it is much more about the story.
mhm.
It's not, you know, especially if you get some of these houses with like weird features, you've got to tell a story. Otherwise, people
You
look
gotta
at it and they're like,
make it till you
that
make
doesn't
it.
make any sense at all. And
Yeah.
you're like, no, it does if you look at it from this one angle,
Yeah.
So, and I get that. But tears are definitely not my forte. Like the
Yeah.
people that are crying all the time
Oh, yeah.
are
No, overly
just,
emotional is not my
yeah.
thing.
And so I can chameleon to an extent.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm never gonna be able to chameleon to that. Like,
Sure.
people crying makes me, like, break out into hives, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know what to do with my hands. Like, I feel like I should hug you, but I don't want to,
Yeah.
and,
Like, I know what I should be
I know,
doing.
I'm like, yeah, so
But I
it
feel like,
just
I mean, you and I have co-listed a luxury property together, and I
right.
feel like the way that you and I ended up handling it on the back end, like, we had some bumps in the beginning. We were figuring it out. Like,
Uh-huh,
there was
uh-huh.
some personality conflicts in the beginning for a lot of what was happening. But I felt like at the end, like, we really figured out, like, it was so good because I had a much harder time dealing with the buyer's agent at the very end that I literally told her not to call me anymore. I was like, "If you need something, you're gonna have to call Amber," because she was that overly emotional
Yeah.
person that was very defensive all the time, and
But she also did next to nothing the whole transaction
very
except
true.
create a mess.
Very
This
true.
is what happens, again, with incompetent agents who work outside their area.
Yeah,
And
that's
just so
very
they can
true.
get paid. When you don't show up and when you aren't hands-on, then don't create a mess for everybody else who is
Absolutely.
showing up,
Yeah,
you
and that
know?
that was extremely frustrating. It probably didn't help that when we did that, I was not I was still in that postpartum-y phase, like, Everett was still little, like,
Mhm.
and so I was also just like, I can only mentally handle so much before I will, like, snap on you, and I just and so it was easier for me to deal with the sellers in that moment where it was just like, this is like, these are the facts of the sale, and the seller was so, like, type A, was just very business about it, so it was so
Right.
much easier just to push that
Well,
information
part of the
off.
seller.
Part
One
well,
half of the seller team was very type A.
yeah, very type A, but that
Yeah.
was I mean, it was at the end, we figured it out,
Yeah,
and it
absolutely.
went much smoother once there were some boundaries set, but, I mean, I think that's just there was a lot of movement in that one, but I think a lot of it was just it made it easier, and it's easier sometimes to be able to play off of each other, which is why, sometimes I'll call you and just be like, "This is what happened, and this is what I'm
Don't
just"
even lie. You're like, "Girl, are you sitting down?" Like, I have got to tell you the shit show that just happened to me. Like, don't lie and say,
Boom, boom, boom.
"Oh my gosh," it was just, this normal situation. It's never a
It's
normal
never
situation.
normal.
If
It's
I
never
see
normal.
your number come across my phone, I'm like, and it's a phone call, not a text message. If I see a phone call from you, I have to immediately, like, sit down or, like,
Yes.
get to a comfortable space or, like, stop the car, put it in park, like,
Yes.
I need to prepare because it's never
Yes.
like a, "Hey, how's your day?" Like, just checking
Well,
in.
also, I know better. We text
Yeah,
that. I know better.
exactly. Yeah.
But yes, I do attract some of the difficult and weird, but it's also because I think my personality, I can just handle it, but I just need to like diarrhea it out to somebody. Like
Yeah.
somebody needs to hear all of it because in our world, like I can't talk to a lot of people about what's going on in my transactions. Like I can't talk about what's going on. Like it has to be, I mean, there is that separation of professionalism.
Hmm.
So I have to be so careful about who I talk to and who I'm releasing information to. But sometimes, man,
Well, and we are both, as big as our respective territories are, they're also very small when you
yes,
think about it, because
yes,
it truly is the 80-20 rule. You
yes,
know, there are 20% of the agents in any given market doing 80% of the business. So, you know, if you were to talk to an agent in your own territory, there's no way it would not
get around.
get around. I mean, that's one thing about agents. They have the gift of gab, but
Hmm.
the problem is that most of the time it's like a game of telephone in elementary school
Yes,
where there's that one person that decides they need to embellish the whole thing like dramatically, and then it just takes off like wildfire from there.
right.
So, you know, talking to somebody in your own market is not always the best idea.
Well, and, even to go one step further, you don't want your client to ever think that you're like, if it's
No.
something to do with an issue, like a lot of it is sometimes like you just need to make sure, did I do the right thing? Like a
Hmm.
lot of it is when it feels hard in that moment, you're double guess, like you're triple checking yourself and you're double
Hmm.
guessing and you're like, I just need, let me walk you through the situation. Did I do this right? This is what's being said. And you don't want that get back to your client because it's not that you're bashing your client. You're just trying to make sure that you're fighting for them the way that you should be. Or if they're being irrational, like, no, they really were just being
Hmm.
irrational and I didn't
Yeah.
mess up.
Well, and to be very, very, very clear so that everybody understands, whenever we do have these conversations, it's never disclosure of names
No.
or particular properties
Nope.
or anything like that. It's always very kind of
Vague.
vague, like, here's an overview of the
Right.
situation.
100%.
How would you handle it?
Yeah.
So I just want everybody to understand that our fiduciary duty of confidentiality doesn't disappear just because we're two brokers.
No.
It's just more of a situational,
Yeah, like I'll say I have this
conversation.
I'll say something like I have this seller and think rural Texas. And so that gives you a good idea that this is not a bustling city. So,
Mhm.
this is what's coming up and how like help me figure out how to overcome it. And so, but it's because at that point because you don't work in my territory, what city I'm in and my client's name has no meaning to tell
No,
you. Like it doesn't do anything to help you better understand what I'm
no.
asking you.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's the beauty of being able to network outside of your territories.
Well, and I think too that as brokers, as opposed to just agents, we're exposed to so much more liability
Yeah.
that a lot of agents don't understand. They're like, if I do something wrong, my broker basically takes the brunt of it. I mean, I might get a slap on the wrist, but the chances of getting caught on a lot of things for an agent are
Hmm.
pretty small.
Yeah.
But as a broker, we have to look at things that our agents are doing and be like, does this seem legit to you? Like,
Yeah.
this is what the agent's telling me, this is what their email's telling me, and this is what the client's telling me. Like,
Right.
how would you proceed, sort of thing? Because while everybody's 1099 at both of our firms, we don't have agents as employees, there are still kind of ethical ways that situations have to be handled. We can't
Yes.
just like walk in and be like, there's the door, get out, because
Right.
their transactions are still going to follow us.
Yes.
So we don't get to just be released of whatever liability they had for the next, 4 years. We have to keep every document related
Right.
to it. And then it won't matter if it's 4 years or 10 years. If that client has a problem, the buck still stops with you.
Right.
And they will track you down
Right.
to complain about whatever inconvenience they're having because the agent that no longer works for you did something.
Yes.
So,
Absolutely.
it is a sounding board, but it's more than that. It's keeping each other kind of out of hot water sometimes. Like,
Yeah. For
And
sure.
as redheads and as very similar temperaments, we have a habit of being a little bit hard charging
Mm-hmm.
and fiery if something fires us up. And
Mm-hmm.
so, like, my first instinct might be to set the whole thing ablaze.
Right.
And I might need somebody else to calm me down and be like, maybe that's not the best idea right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe take a breather.
Yeah. Sit down for a minute.
Yeah.
And
Go take a walk.
Yeah.
Like, you'll be all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's not do that
Yeah.
quite yet. Let's try this instead.
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely just this, it's a camaraderie, for lack of a better term, that we can have with each other. You can't have it with everybody, but
No.
you have to find your people.
Yes.
And
that's huge.
And I don't even know really what made us each other's people, but we did become each other's people in a CE class.
I think Candy.
It was Candy. I mean, it was definitely Candy Cook.
Yeah.
But it was so funny because it just reminds me of school. Like, everyone came and sat in the same table at the same place for 2 days, and then then there's a break, and the following week you have it on the same days, and we did it again. We just all sat at the same table, and I remember like a few people at our table, but I don't like there was probably 10 people at our table, and I remember you and maybe one or two other people, and it was only because of things that they said, whatever it was. But I think in the breakout groups, I think it was just more like we just kind of bulldozed a situation because we had to do some sort of group discussion.
Yeah.
And it was like, it's like when you get a group assignment in class, you're always going to have those people that don't want to do anything. So like we just did it. And then it was like, oh, I see
Well,
you.
I think the other thing is looking at the two of us, we both have serious resting bitch face.
No.
Yeah, big time. I don't know if you've heard, but
Never been told that.
I feel like for an instructor in a class, it was probably like I either need to team them up and they will tear each other apart, or I will team them up and they will be like best friends and like a force to be reckoned with sort of thing. And I think that's what it was. So either way, it was sort of going to be entertaining for Candy, because either it was going to be like this battle between us, like to see who was going to win, like the redheaded war.
You could probably like feel it like across the room. Like if we were at opposite ends, like it would just converge, and it wouldn't have anything to do with that we didn't like each other. It would just be our faces. But I think some of it was also that I was newer to I relocated to Texas, so I was still like newer to Texas at that point. And I think it was also because we are who we are. It takes me a hot second to like get out of my own head and get out of my shell for a hot second. Not that I can't be an extrovert, but when you're in CE, it's not a place for you to socialize and network. It's
most CEs, it's like almost sort of a day off.
Yeah, kind of.
Because, I mean, you have an excuse to not answer the phone all day long. And like, that's my favorite thing, to be able to text people like, hey, I'm in a class. Can you just text me?
Yeah.
Like, and I'm being honest, like I really can't answer the phone call for the fourth time today. Like,
yes, we have our set breaks. They're like 15-minute breaks where we can take our phones out and we can go do our stuff. But I mean, if you want business, the best thing to do is go on CE, like go to CE or go on vacation. But I think that was definitely part of it, was that it was in your territory. I drove to your territory to take this class because it was back when in-person classes were a thing. And I think honestly, it was that we just like, it was Candy's way of making me have to come out of my shell, because Candy knew me from other classes and she knew what I had to offer. And so I think a lot of it was just pushing me to go that one step further.
Yeah.
Which she's
so Candy cooks. She's like the little matchmaker.
God, I do love
it's
my
her
Candy.
Fault I'm a broker. Probably her fault you're a broker too.
It is 100%. Do you hear me, Candy? This is 100%
Candy,
your
this
fault.
is for you.
This is
any future issues that we have related to our real estate careers is because Candy cook.
Yes.
So
and all of a lot of the successes that I have are also because of Candy.
Oh, absolutely. But I mean, we don't want to inflate her ego too much. We love her.
I feel like there's like going to be a wizard that hits me in the side of the head in like 5 seconds. Like,
I'm just expecting her to call me or like FaceTime me with a big L on her forehead, or like, what were you thinking? Are you serious right now? I'm like, sorry, Candy.
Yeah.
I'll be
We'll get
better
berated.
next time.
Yeah. We'll get berated next time. Backtrack.
Yeah. Okay. Have to have a disclaimer
Yeah.
next time because Candy Cook said so.
Right. She's done a lot, and she's a whole nother episode.
She's her own episode. Yeah,
She's
if
her
we
own
could get
episode.
her in here, she would be her own.
Calling all candy cooks. Calling all
Yeah.
candy cooks.
Actually, not all Candy Cooks. We only want the one Candy Cook because I can imagine with a name like Candy Cook, you might have some other
That's true.
imposters.
The only candy cook that also cans and brings me jam every time I see her for my kids.
I don't get jam.
Candy bring 2 things of jam.
I don't get preserves. I don't get pickles. I don't get jam. I don't.
Oh, I get her jam, but I get triple berry jam for the kids. They love it.
I don't eat jam, so I'm not really upset. But I mean, kind of, but not really.
But
is that enough for this one? Did we even talk about our subject? We didn't even talk about our subject.
We talked about a subject. That's the whole episode. And then we just have to end it.
Because how long did we just talk? A long time.
Probably a good 45 minutes. Almost an hour.
Oh my God. Okay.
So then we just need to end it.
The end.
We're
I'm
done.
done talking for that episode. I'm done talking. Come back next time to see our awkwardness in person.
Yeah. Don't worry, my pit is only sweating a little bit.
Oh my God. Jeez. Like I'm sitting, I feel like I'm like Magda in this dress. I'm not loving it. Not loving my clothing option for this particular day.
It looks pretty though. It doesn't look as bad as you think.
It looks bad.
It doesn't look bad.
But there's absolutely no way to sit where it doesn't. It's just the cut of the dress.
It's the pleat of the pant.
Jesus.
So we need an ender. Like, see us
So
next
we
time?
really did episode 2 as episode 1.
We did.
'Kay.
We did that, but that's okay. We don't have to go in the order I put it in.
Okay.
Then we just need an ending, like a moral of the story. Make sure that you.
But I feel like we covered so many topics.
We did.
That I don't know that there's one moral to the story. Moral of the story is baptism should be less exorcism, more baptism. Moral of this story is don't hug me unless you're like one of my 5 friends that I allow to hug
Interview
me.
agents. Research and interview.
Yes,
your
moral
agents.
of the story is
Research and interview.
clients have to do
agents.
their due diligence before hiring an agent also.
Yes, 100%. And then, yes, that is the moral of the story.
It was a really long story to get to that moral.
It was. You know,
we go all the way around
it
the
took
moral.
God 7 days to make the earth, Amber. We only talked for 59 minutes about interviewing agents.
That's true. Okay. Is that an ending? Are we good?
Yeah, are we
Or
supposed
are you going to actually end it? I'll let you do that. I'll just sit over here with my droopy dress and
aren't we
call it
supposed-
good.
Aren't we supposed to say something like, see us for our next, or listen to our next episode, or catch us next time? Find
If
us
we
on
haven't
Instagram.
annoyed you to death already, you might want to stick around. Are these all going in at once? The first 4 drop at one time, right?
I thought we were dropping one every week.
Oh, I don't know.
I thought we were dropping one every week or every 2 weeks or something.
I don't know.
Okay.
We're just winging it.
Grand. One a week.
One a week. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Are
Okay.
we supposed to have an exit? Are we supposed to say things like, that's it.
Okay,
See you later.
Done talking
Done talking.
for
I'm
this
sweaty.
for this episode. I feel like
Find us on Instagram.
I need to pee. I need to recoup. My extroverted, introverted self needs like a break in the talking.
Yeah. Find us on Instagram. Send us your questions.
Or TikTok.
Yeah, TikTok. I haven't been so good on that lately. But find us on social media.
Yeah.
Reach out to us. Ask us your questions. If we like it, your question will be featured.
Yeah, if we don't, we'll just ignore you like we do.
And we'll just give you the
most
thumbs
other
up.
things. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for taking the time. Have the day you deserve.
Well, that's a good
That's
ending for you.
No,
My
that's my response on comments I don't like on social media.
Oh, mine is, I usually end mine just because of my territory. I usually end mine with, "Have a blessed day.
Oh, yeah. No.
Have a blessed day."
Yeah.
I
Mine is
didn't mean
have the
that to
day
any
you
of the people
deserve.
interested in our podcast.
Yeah.
Don't have a blessed day. Have a really great day.
Yeah. The best day ever, in fact.
Yeah. Have the best day ever. Follow us on socials. Ask us all the questions.
Okay, we're done talking.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.